All right, well, we'll get started here. Thanks very much for coming today. My name is John Seguin. I'm one of the co-founders, president, and chief librarian here at Third Iron. This is our 2021 roadmap. I'm going to be recording this as well, so that if you're not able to catch all of it, you will certainly receive an email from our newsletter indicating a recording of this in the next couple of days. If you have questions while we're going along here, I know one of my co-founders, Kendall Barch, is on the line as well. He'll be answering questions in the chat box, and we should have questions at the end of this as well. So if you have other questions and you want me to address them verbally, we can do that at the end of the session too. The other kind of quick point here is that this is a roadmap discussion. So this is a company update. If you're brand new to Third Iron, you haven't seen any of our presentations before, you're not real familiar with the various products, this probably isn't the presentation for you because we are going to be deep diving into the improvements that we've made over the last year with our products, as well as what's on the roadmap in 2021. And it's not going to be a general discussion of the different services. So certainly, if you're brand new, you're welcome to stay. Would love for you to see what we're talking about, but would definitely encourage you to get in touch with us and get a more general overview of the products and how they'd help your library. So without further ado, again, my name is John Seguin. I'm the co-founder, president, and chief librarian here at Third Iron, and I'm happy to share our roadmap with you. So first, though, I do want to say that Third Iron is now 10 years old, which is kind of amazing for me to think about. We started back in April of 2011, and we started with basically 3 co-founders, 3 employees, and that's grown to 25 in the last 10 years. So it's just flown by, but it's been a really, really exciting and really fun ride. We've been based in St. Paul, Minnesota, but we've always been virtual. So we've never had kind of a formal office and so on. We've had people in a number of different states in the US, in the UK, and Canada over the years. But it's been really, really exciting to have a virtual company that's grown from 3 to 25. And also, we've always been an independent self-finance company. We've never worked with virtual venture capital or outside investment. So we exist because of you. So thank you very, very much for your support. And I'm really excited to share with you what we've been up to. We're now used by over 1,000 institutions around the world, in about 35 countries. That now makes up over 75% of the ARLs in the US, over 50% of the universities in Australia and in the UK. And also we've branched out to large hospital systems, such as the VA hospitals, of which all of them use Third Iron services, Mayo Clinic, numerous NHS sites, IERA hospitals in Sweden, and so on. It's also taken us into various government sites, as well as corporations who have, of course, very different needs than academic institutions. So it's very, very exciting to kind of see all of the interest there is in the types of technology solutions that Third Iron is bringing. Now, our strategic direction has evolved over the years. When we first started the company, it was around a product called BrowZine, which many of you are likely familiar with. And BrowZine was designed at the time when we saw lots of print to e transition and trying to design a product that could replicate that interactivity that you have with browsing a collection of journals. And in so building that, though, we came across a very important element, which was making sure that you can get to full text with the simplicity that print affords. That this idea that you can find a journal on the shelf, find an article you're interested in, and just instantly get to that full text. That was something very core to the browsing experience. And it was so powerful and so impactful, we found, for our libraries, that the idea to kind of bring that out of browsing emerged, which is what we ultimately called LibKey Discovery. And we branded that technology that's sort of at the heart of the browsing system and made it into an open modular API in 2017 for libraries to build on. But really, we didn't find until around 2019 that if we take that technology as an API, but then build applications around it, that's when things really get exciting, because it becomes very easy for libraries to integrate it into existing systems. We built individual products around it, like LibKey Nomad, which kind of stand alone and users can install and use. And our direction really going forward is evolving that suite of products, as well as refining the core LibKey technology. And so now we have kind of a very full suite of products that we call Third Iron Complete, with LibKey Discovery, Link, Nomad, IO, and BrowZine. And so with that in mind, I decided to break down our update here into these different product categories. But we want to kind of start with the LibKey core logic. So these are things that we've done that affect all of the different products and that we've accomplished in 2020, and then what's looking ahead in 2021. So some of the things that are very exciting to report from 2020 is we got to a peak month in 2020, which was in the fall, where LibKey received over 60 million API calls and delivered more than 5 million full text articles in a single month. So that was a really nice slope going up of usage of that service, really hitting that high point. And we expect that we'll probably hit it again here in the spring, if not exceed that. The other thing we saw was we added support for thousands of additional journal titles and platforms, many of them open access, new publishers, new journals coming online, and so on. And we continue to keep up to date with thousands of different publishers pulling new titles online. We also worked with a number of publishers to normalize PDF delivery. And what I mean by normalize is that if you're familiar with the normal workflow for things like the LibKey services, you know that ideally, when you see a PDF link that we produce, when you click it, you essentially instantly see that document on your screen. Obviously, there may be an authentication layer there, but you should go very quickly to the document itself. You may be familiar, though, with the experience that when you click it, it then has a download that happens in your browser. This, of course, is not something that LibKey is doing. The publisher actually has done this with their platform. And I'm sure we're all familiar with that experience of going to those various platforms and clicking the download PDF and not seeing it, and then finding it on our desktop and then scrolling around in the file system to find it. Not something very ideal in our view. So we've actually been coordinating with a number of publishers who operate their sites that way, to either change the way they run their sites so that it works more in what's called an inline view, or to provide us with a unique syntax that LibKey can use. So that the LibKey experience, at least, can be directly to that viewed PDF. So we're really trying to normalize the industry in that way, and we've had some nice successes with that this year. The other thing we've done is improved linking to aggregated sources for better link reliability. This means any different types of aggregators, because those tend to be the most difficult to link to. We've developed new innovations on our end to make that even more reliable. Typically, when you think about building links to those sources, you think, how do I build this open URL so that it is most conducive to success at the publisher's site? I'm sorry, at the platform site. But one of the things that most systems don't do with that is take into consideration the source data. So some of that source data kind of modifications are some of the things that we're doing, I think, very creatively. For example, we know that certain platforms do not respond well to diacritics inside of like authors' names and stuff. It actually causes all kinds of problems because the Unicode didn't transfer and so on. And so we actually normalize the data before we send it out to OpenURL. And we found that that increases reliability. The other thing that we added last year was supporting SAML authentication. Now we've always supported OpenAthens, which is a very large, of course, SAML authentication system. But other folks who are doing direct SAML connections between, say, InCommon and so on, and a publisher, some folks are experimenting with bringing some sources online with that. You know, these 3 publishers we want, these 2 publishers we want SAML. So we've added the ability to have that hybrid authentication model, where you have some that run via SAML, others that run via a proxy, for example, or a VPN system. Or in some cases, SAML everything. So added some nice support for SAML. Now going forward, there's a couple major things that we're doing. Of course, we're always expanding direct linking. That's always going to be something we're going to be doing, whether it's working with those publishers to normalize or create PDF linking syntaxes in some cases where they literally don't have one, as well as just adding more and more titles. The other major thing we're doing is ingesting OA data. Now, we've always done this to an extent in that we've sort of harvested OA knowledge on our end, where we identify certain journals as being OA, and of course then don't ask for authentication to get to those materials. But we've partnered with OnPaywall to ingest their data to really focus on creating many more links to open access version of record articles. So this is going much beyond the journal level OA down to the article level. And again, very much focusing on that version of record. because we know that not all OA is the same. Sometimes the best available one is actually a submitted manuscript. This isn't even the peer-reviewed version. It's been unedited and so on. And different users are going to appreciate or not appreciate that being the thing that's being linked to. So we're going to be offering some flexibility in that, as well as adding that knowledge to our systems. Now, a great way to illustrate how those changes will be positive for users is to look at kind of our waterfall. And we call this the LibKey waterfall of best available version. And what this means is that when we get a DOI into our system, a PMID that comes in as a query, where we're trying to find for your library, what is the best available version we can link to, we look through a lot of different data very, very quickly to come up with this kind of waterfall of choices based on linking reliability, quality, and speed. And so today, when you look at this on the left-hand side, the first thing we do is, do we know that we can get you to the open access version of record via, gold OA journals that we've identified here at Third Iron? A good example of that is, a PLOS One article comes in, we know that's an OA journal, off we go. If it's not an OA journal that we know about, we look to see, what do you have in your holdings data? Is it from, do you have a source that's the publisher, or do you have sources that are aggregators? And we then rank those accordingly. So if you do have a publisher source, off we go to that publisher. If you don't have that available, then we go to the aggregator. And then in certain instances, we've added some technology in 2020, kind of as a way to dip our feet in the water with unpaywall data, to do live calls to unpaywall to say, okay, well, this isn't something that Third Iron's knowledge base knows about. It's not something you subscribe to. It's not in any aggregator. Let's check on paywall, see what they know. And we'll do a call out to them in certain circumstances, as I'm noting here, like LibKey Discovery, as well as Nomad and IO. And if all of that comes up empty, then we will produce a link to your ILL or document delivery service. So all of those kind of happen very quickly and you get one response. So it's very simple for the user. But how can we enhance that this year with ingesting some of this data ahead of time, not doing live calls out to unpaywall, but actually interweaving that into our waterfall? Well, the first thing we do is actually at the first step, where we will be looking at open access version of records from the Third Iron knowledge base, but also to see if unpaywall and some other sources we're using knows about a version of record that is OA. And the reason why we're focusing on version of record here is we know that that is the most desirable thing to have, but it's also the most reliable. Having non-version of record materials, those tend to be on servers that are a little less reliable sometimes. So we know that we can introduce a great deal of reliability if we know that it's going to be at a publisher source. And if we know that it's OA, we're not going to prompt for authentication, which is going to speed up everything for users as well. So the rest of that waterfall basically stays the same, but you get down to the second gold box there where it has open access calls still to unpaywall for certain non-version of record. So essentially you've got things going out to doing live calls that's going to pick up the things that are the submitted manuscripts and are the accepted manuscripts before you then get to ILL and document delivery. And some libraries have been very interested in us actually removing that step because they don't want non-version of record. So those are some other enhancements we're looking at doing to make sure that we're kind of constructing this OA universe in a way that best serves your users. Another major thing we're doing is enhanced EBSCO-host linking. For all of our clients, EBSCO-host is by far the biggest aggregator that most folks use, the most content in aggregation leading to their site. So we really wanted to focus on making this as solid as we possibly could. So earlier last year, actually it's been more than a year, I guess, in discussion, we worked with EBSCO to create a new identifier-based linking scheme. So they created an API for this. And the way that the goals of doing this were essentially trying to create reliable linking that was identifier-based. So getting away from open URLs, focusing on DOIs. And the other element there that this introduces is direct to PDF linking on EBSCOhost, which you don't do today. So we have a combination of both more reliable linking, where you're not going to be reliant on OpenURL and the fragilities of different indexing sources, and you're dealing directly with identifiers, which is great. But the other element that we wanted to tackle was entitlements confirmation. And the screen I've got over here to the right, where it says no results were found. Most of you are probably familiar with this. You've probably encountered this at one point or another. And essentially what's often happening here is the metadata may be off, but actually more commonly in our experience, it's just because things are too new or they're not available in aggregation. What I mean by that is sometimes certain supplements aren't available in aggregation. Sometimes the newest material is not there the same day that it appears at the publisher site, for example. Sometimes you get into articles and press type scenarios. There's all these different other kind of scenarios where aggregation, and this is not just EBSCO, but aggregation in general, just doesn't get access to that material that the direct publisher has. But rather than creating links then inside of the LibKey universe where we link out and we go, oh, I guess this is what happens, we will be able to verify those links before they appear in your Primo systems or Summon or OCLC and TDNet and all that kind of thing in real time. So really exciting to be able to say, this link will definitely work. That's going to EBSCO. So that's going to be coming this year. There is going to be a small additional setup required because we need to interact directly with some permissions information in your EBSCO host account to do this. But we'll have another newsletter announcement and some more information about that when that's ready a little bit later this year. Another big thing we're doing on the core logic is adding retraction watch data. With COVID stuff happening in the past year, we started seeing a lot of this kind of retraction discussion. Papers published very fast that ultimately had to be retracted because of maybe errors or inconsistencies and so on and so on. And all of that has a snowball effect on the scholarly record. So there's been an organization called Retraction Watch who's been looking at this for the last 10 years, tracking the retractions that occur, investigating them, writing about them. And they actually have pulled together a database with over 22,000 retractions that have occurred. And that database now has been ingested into the LibKey core logic. And so we're trying to do our part to make the notice of retractions much more visible. Many publishers, of course, when you link directly to the publisher, you will see, hey, this is this paper's been retracted. But surprisingly, not always. Sometimes publishers just leave it up. Sometimes publishers simply vanish the article, like it never existed, never happened, even though the article still exists in an index somewhere. So it can have real confusing effects for people. And of course, if you're getting it from a third-party source, maybe it's OA, it's over here, it's it's been reposted over there. Not every source is keeping track of what's been retracted and what hasn't. So our concept is to say, well, because LibKey is interacting with the linkages to full text, LibKey can kind of jump in the path of that and say, whoa, this has been retracted. So we've introduced a new variation on our format chooser here, which you can see on the right. It has all of the data from the Retraction Watch group with the reasons for retraction, links to related articles and the official retraction notices and so on. And we're going to be doing signposting of this in our various products as well. So we can kind of bring this knowledge directly into where people are doing their searches. So here's a couple of sort of mock-ups of what that looks like. This is in the BrowZine universe. So you can see browsing web, browsing on mobile, where there's a very clear retracted article notice and so on, as well as here in some of our LibKey technology. On the left, you've got LibKey Nomad. You can see that you've got that dark red article retracted indicator rather than a download PDF. And then on the right hand here, you can see this is in Primo, where there's a new retracted article label that appears and a nice little kind of alert symbol. If you click any of those links, retracted article, article retracted, this retraction notice, and so on, the user will wind up at a screen like this that you can see on the right-hand side. So it should be very clear what this looks like. The user can still click through and download the document, but we really want to make sure that folks know the status of this before doing so. Another core logic update for this year is we're adding support for Japanese language content. We're working closely with JALC, which is the DOI registrar in Japan, to add thousands of scientific Japanese language journals. We're actually the first Western company to engage with JALC for this data. So this is very, very exciting for us to be able to bring this to everybody. And the Japanese character set for title searching has been added to BrowZine to support researchers looking for this content. So all of those things are general LibKey updates. That's all stuff that's going to affect all the different products. Now I'm going to talk about specific product updates, things that we did this year and things that are happening later this year in our different services. So first, LibKey Discovery, which is aimed, of course, at your discovery systems. There's a couple of 2020 highlights. We did expand to cover now all major discovery platforms. OCLC was the last to join, but now everybody is supported, which was really our goal from day one. We really wanted to make this a vendor neutral solution that any system could use to greatly enhance researchers' experience. We also added article linking to select platforms. It's currently available in Primo, Summon, and TDNet /Ovid Discovery. And article linking is for sources that we cannot do a PDF link to right now, but we can do an article link. So this would be in most aggregator sources like EBSCO and ProQuest and so on, as well as a few other handful of publishers or platforms that we're not doing PDF for today. We did that mostly at the request of customers because folks were saying, this PDF linking is great, but we noticed this odd scenario where if there's not a PDF link in LibKey available, we go back into BrowZine and we get to the article, but in our discovery system or our link resolver, it fails. Like, what's going on? And that has a lot to do with these innovations we've done in linking in general, not just PDF linking, but just general linking quality. And so we decided to introduce the article linking capability as well. That appears in those platforms whenever we cannot do a PDF automatically. So no change needs to be done by customers to have that capability. We've also started to integrate the LibKey Discovery system in library discovery systems. So other types of article discovery systems that exist out there. Trip Database was the first one to take advantage of that last year. So Trip Database is an evidence-based medical search tool based out of the UK. And if you are a subscriber to LibKey and you're a subscriber to Trip, then you can see all of your LibKey links right inside of that system. Nothing to install, it just happens automatically. Really nice innovation there with Trip. And as you'll see, there's others in the pipeline to come that will have this integration. The other thing we did was do a precursor of better OA support, like I mentioned before in the core update, where we added that unpaywall fallback integration to Primo and Summon. That taught us a lot about how we could improve that, how we could make for better OA discovery. The other thing on the roadmap this year, EBSCO has a new EDS platform coming out. Some customers have already started to see this, but they're going to be continuing to roll that out over the many months. In the new platform, it's going to be a native feature. Right now, if you have EDS, there was sort of a little script that had to be added by the EBSCO support team to get things working in there, but it's actually going to be a native feature so that in the admin module, you can add your API key, turn it on, configure it, and so on. So very exciting to see that mature into a really easy to set up system. The other thing is we're going to see additional platforms come out that natively support the LibKey Discovery technology. So one that's already using it is the Pico portal. That's a brand new system that's just coming out that's focusing on systematic reviews. They have a lot of very cool machine learning that goes into improving systematic reviews in terms of speed and collaboration. And LibKey is a core component of that because it can very quickly figure out how to get users to the full text so that they can do those reviews. The other service is CAB Direct. So if you subscribe to CAB Abstracts and so on, and there are other products on that platform, that's going to be forthcoming here in the coming months. And they're going to add a native integration for LibKey Discovery into that platform. There's some others that are also in the pipeline, a little too early to announce them yet, but look forward to these two coming out very soon. Now, LibKey Link. LibKey Link adds one-click full text to any database that you want to link to. Now, LibKey Link is a little different than Discovery because Discovery is focused on those discovery platforms. They tend to be more modern, and they have support for API type services. LibKey Link was developed to bring that similar technology into systems that can only accommodate link resolvers. This launched actually in 2019 when we were just supporting this for PubMed. And in 2020, we saw a number of enhancements that made it possible to go to any database, including Google Scholar, EBSCO databases, ProQuest databases, Scopus, Web of Science, and so on. In addition to expanding the compatibility for this technology, we also added a couple of key features. One was the introduction of what we call the format chooser, which essentially replaces the concept of saying, we're going to force our users to choose from a bunch of different sources to try and understand what sources they should be selecting, what databases they should be selecting, and have them navigate publisher pages, to instead saying, what format do you want this in? We've already calculated it. You can have it in PDF, or you can get right to the article web link at the publisher site. Which one would you like to do? So it's a grand simplification of user experience, which is a really, really nice thing to give to users. Has a lot of nice features where you can see a little checkbox there to automatically remember a format choice. So if you just want to see PDFs, after you click that for 24 hours without signing into an account or anything like that, the user will instantly get right to PDFs whenever they're available. They won't even see this format choice because essentially they've made their format choice. They've told us what they want to see. We also have links to see the view article in context, which drops you into BrowZine and highlights the article in its originally published context. Really nice way to have additional discovery. And we added a link at the bottom there where you can always go see what your link resolver would have shown rather than LibKey Link. Good, of course, for troubleshooting purposes, but also just a nice ability to have even more options for getting to that content. We also introduced the option to use either one of these modes to get to materials. So the original LibKey Link mode, what we call PDF Express, which essentially says if you click on a link resolver link, like I'm showing here in PubMed, we will quickly calculate, can we get you a PDF? If we can, we will show it instantly. If not, we will go right back to your link resolver. That mode is still available as PDF Express, but Format Chooser is now the default mode because it gives you a lot more flexibility and options to see a lot of different types or a lot of different levels of that experience. So either one of those is possible, but the really nice thing is now you can actually choose which one you want for which database. So that's an innovation we just came out with in 2021, where for Web of Science, you may want, for example, to see that format chooser for your users. And so you can get right to materials and so on, and you can have them make a choice. But maybe in SciNet, you always wanted to do a PDF Express. So now we have URL structures in our documentation where you can choose that on a database by database method. So very, very flexible to be able to do that now. The other thing we did in 2020 was we made it mobile responsive and WCAG 2.0 AA for accessibility. The National Library of Medicine told us that 45% of users of PubMed do so on a mobile device. So it was really important to us to have this really slick mobile experience. You can imagine yourself in PubMed, for example, on your mobile device, clicking on your library's link resolver, and then seeing a screen like you see right over to the right here. Very easy, very slick, appears very quickly, and then tapping PDF and then just getting a PDF instantly on that device. A really, really nice experience. Also, of course, for accessibility, users of screen readers and other assistive technologies really appreciate the streamlined workflows and the easy to use interface. Minimal buttons, not much distraction at all. It's very, very easy to use with a screen reader. Now this link resolution process, especially with LibKey Link, is something that happens hundreds, if not thousands of times a day at your institution. So this efficiency can really, really add up. The other thing we created was an option to suppress library logo interstitial screens. So right now, in these various processes with LibKey Link and actually all the LibKey services, after you click on one of these links, we briefly show kind of a splash screen that says LibKey. It shows your library's logo, the name of the institution, says it's loading the article. This actually holds until we connect to the publisher site. So this might be a fraction of a second. It might be a second or two. It's not very long. But some accessibility experts pointed out that a flashing screen like that may not be optimal for their users. And so we can actually just remove that. And we have no interstitial screen at all. And that way it's even more accessible than before. And finally, we've added a lot of documentation to our site that talks about LibKey Link integrations and setups. The reason why we did this is because many of us have probably set up our link resolver like 8-10 years ago. Maybe you never did it, but the previous person did it, right, in your job. And so, going back to those different services like Google Scholar, like PubMed, like Web of Science or Scopus or EBSCOhost, that may have been something you've never done. So we try to get all the different information together in one easy to look at list to guide you through how to update your link resolver placeholder in those databases to work with LibKey Link. Now, LibKey Nomad. LibKey Nomad is our browser extension that follows users around the web wherever they may begin their research journey. So we added a couple of great things in 2020. First, we added support for Firefox, so it's a native Firefox app, as well as qualified it for Microsoft Edge, which is also now a Chromium-based browser. So expanded the browsers from Chrome to Chrome, Firefox, and Edge. We also added enterprise deployment capability and instructions for via group policy for both Chrome and Firefox. What this means is that if you have managed computers at your organization, that IT can actually push out and pre-configure the Nomad application, so it's already set for your institution's name and so on. And that way, just users, as they Google around and find themselves at publisher sites and Wikipedia and PubMed and all this kind of thing, they will instantly see all the LibKey Nomad buttons on their screen, and they just have instant access, pre-configured, to get one-click access to that content via your library's holdings. And we had a really successful initiative with this with Mayo Clinic. Did this for tens of thousands of machines, worked very well, and users instantly have access to that material. We also built end-user-friendly landing page at libkeynomad.com, so it's very easy to promote in different promotional literature you want to do, which looks like the screen on the right. So it has a getting started video, kind of gives a nice overview about what it can do, and has direct links to the various stores so people can install it on their computers. We also added additional inline enhanced sites. So you can see here Web of Science and Scopus got a similar treatment to what we had originally done for PubMed. So really exciting to see additional platforms be supported in this similar way, and adds a lot of familiarity then between these different services for users. We have a number of additional inline sites planned for Nomad in 2021. You can see here Embase there in the top left. That actually I think is released maybe this week or next. So that's going to be here before you know it. And we also have other ones that are actually very focused on clinician facing products like UpToDate and Micromedics. So these are services that frontline clinicians are using every day to help them in their work. And we're doing a very similar integration to what we do with Wikipedia, where the different scholarly references are being automatically enhanced, like you can see in these mockups here, to get access to that material. SciFinderN is also on the roadmap as well for a similar type of integration. LibKey.io is the last service I want to talk about. And this is a simple identifier-based access to content and powerful resolving syntax for open web discovery platforms. So it is a standalone site, like you can see there. With LibKey.io, just put in a DOI or PMID and off you go. But it's also being installed natively on libraries' websites. So you can add a one-click link to say, I want to find this article at my library. You can see we also have a native EBSCO Stacks integration. You can see Cleveland Clinic here as an example, where they integrated that same type of functionality right on the library homepage. We've actually produced very easy to use HTML code that you can put this on your website as well. So you can have a very easy one identifier type lookup, which makes it feel very much like a Sci-Hub type lookup, but it's now using all of your authenticated materials right from your library website. The other very exciting thing is that we've developed it not only as a destination site, but also just a syntax. So you can actually go to libkey.io / and then put a DOI or PMID, and the routing will automatically happen to get you to the full text material. So we've very quickly seen third-party sites like Semantic Scholar, ClinOwl, CitationZ, IBD Watch, and there's many more in the pipeline that we can't yet announce that are using this to help out with that last mile problem. Because there's a lot of services out there that are trying to do a lot of innovative things on the discovery side, or the management side of research, where they're doing collaborative things and so on. But at the end of the day, they get down to these citations and they need a way to get to the full text. And having a LibKey integration there is incredibly simple for them to integrate, and it automatically lights it up for our 1,000+ libraries. So you can see here with IBD Watch, the very specialized site focused on Crohn's and colitis news and research. At the bottom of every article, there's a full text link that's libkey.io/the PMID. Here's another example with Semantic Scholar that you can see integrated as well, where they have the blue link there. And this continues to be something we're going to see a lot of, I think, in the next year, and we'll be announcing a lot more for this. It's very attractive for these services because right now, the total tally of users with access to the LibKey technology is more than 15 million globally. So there's quite a lot of reach that these services can have by integrating the LibKey technology in this way. If you're not familiar with how this workflow works, here's just a very quick kind of graphical overview of this. Essentially, if you're at ClinOwl, for example, which uses this as well, they may have a link like this, libkey.io, and then a DOI after that. Now, let's say you're a user at University of Michigan. You're a student there, you click on that link, and that link is just going to say something like full text, go here for that. Then what's going to happen is that you may be asked to identify what institution you're at, but very often you're not. Your browser will just know, and it will know because all of the LibKey services are intertwined, meaning that if you're a student at Michigan or at University of Sydney or any of these institutions that maybe are using LibKey in your discovery layer, or you've ever interacted with LibKey Link via Google Scholar and so on, by clicking on one of those library initiated links, those are wafeless links. So they have your library ID baked into them automatically. That gets remembered by the browser so that when a user comes to one without a library ID, like this libkey.io link here, the browser just automatically remembers, oh, that's right, you're at Michigan. So it's a very slick, kind of very seamless, magical thing that can happen for the user where they say, oh yeah, I'm at Michigan, okay. And it will say, here's your availability. They have a PDF of this. I click on that, and then I get into my login, of course, because this is not an open access article, so I have to authenticate. It knows how to do that for Michigan, for example. And it turns out that Michigan gets this from EBSCO. So it routes them via EBSCO, and there's the document. Now, Sydney, it's a similar path, but you can see that Sydney actually gets this from Wiley. And of course, Sydney has a totally different authentication route for their users. So the nice thing about this is you have a consistent syntax, which automatically takes care of all of this routing in a very simple way, making it a very powerful last mile solution for all of these discovery systems. And not just discovery systems, we're seeing libraries utilize this in their own mechanisms on their own websites or in their own innovations that they're building upon. So the other thing that we're doing is very much facilitating scholarly communication with libkey.io. There's a lot of social media exchange about this. We just posted one of the tweets out here saying that this person just learned that you can access this. This is amazing, right? So it's very, very cool to see that the reactions to this. And we're even seeing publishers start to adopt this for email alerts. So the first partner is coming soon on that. And what I mean by that is that if you sign up at a publisher site with an email alert, they will just send you a generic email alert. It doesn't know anything about your library, doesn't know who you are, doesn't know how you authenticate, doesn't know what entitlements you have, but LibKey knows all those things. So when you get the email and you click through, it will actually take you on a libkey.io journey to make sure that you get authenticated and affiliated correctly to that content. So anywhere a DOI or PMID is used, you can use libkey.io. And finally, BrowZine. This is, of course, our original product, the easiest way to browse, read, and monitor scholarly journals. In the last year, in addition to moving BrowZine Web to being WCAG 2.0AA compliant, we've updated all the VPATs for that accordingly and so on. really making it a very, very accessible system. I remember very early in the BrowZine days that we had actually a blind user email us indicating that this was the first time they ever had an easy way to access full text material. And that's kind of resonated with me since then. And they were talking about actually the mobile app version, that it was by far the simplest way they had to interact with full text content. And so we've tried to bring that along with us to the web experience as well, making it super, super accessible for users. We've also added what we call the sticky header for in-context linking, because we see a lot of that activity coming from the discovery systems and so on. So you can see what happens there on the right is if I scroll down now inside of a journal table of contents, a kind of micro header appears at the top so you don't lose your place, you know where you are. And the little button at the bottom to back to top can scroll you all the way back up to the top of that issue. We also significantly updated our iOS and Android from the original design elements back from 2013, which it really hadn't been touched for about 7 years. So, those of you who've been with us a long time, please do, take a moment of silence for the beloved bookshelf plant. You may be missing it still, but it is no longer. So we've moved from that skeuomorphic kind of look that we had back then to a much more modern, consistent look with what browsing web was designed around. In addition to the integration of all the LibKey core features, including that retraction watch with browsing, there are other initiatives afoot, but it's just a little too early to announce those. We don't want to announce what we're working on. That's many, many, many months out. We will certainly do so as time goes on here and things get closer to talk about other exciting things coming for browsing. So just a quick little review on this. In these two major categories, major LibKey core logic things going on, many of which have been in the works for a year or more. So of course, more direct linking to lots of different sources, ingesting that OA data and adjusting the waterfall accordingly for best available version, using the EBSCO API for availability and really improving that EBSCO linking. Ingesting that retraction watch and adding new UI elements to indicate when retractions are happening for those articles, and adding Japanese language support via working with the JALC DOI registry group. On the product side, LibKey Discovery, easier EDS setup and more options there. New platform integrations with LibKey Discovery, some already out like Trip Database and some coming soon. LibKey Link, the format chooser, adding that selectable by database option, option to suppress the library logo and improving the documentation and giving you more guidance on setting it up with various databases. LibKey Nomad supporting more domains for inline enhancement like Embase, UpToDate, Micromedics, and so on. And LibKey.io, you can look forward to more adoption of by public discovery tools out there, and the use of LibKey as a linking syntax. And of course, more to be announced on the browsing side as we get closer to some new exciting features. So we're really trying to focus on saying that the LibKey core technology really equips libraries with next generation linking. And we're really focusing on not only the core technologies, but also the tools that the technology can take that is used within to make sure that you have all these different capabilities that you can choose from to make the most advanced linking system possible for your users. So that's the whirlwind update, folks. Thanks so much for coming today. I know I've been talking a mile a minute here, so hopefully I haven't been too fast on things, but I'm going to definitely have some water here and take a break. And I see a couple of questions coming in, so I will answer those in just a moment. But otherwise, know that this was recorded, so you'll be receiving a notice here in a few days with a copy of this if you want to share it with your colleagues. Thanks again for coming, everybody. I appreciate it. All right, a couple of questions here. Chris K notes that a lot of publishers want to link directly to their sites, and so linking a PDF might be counter for some of those publishers. Can you share a list of platforms that enable PDF direct linking? Chris, if you can message me at john@thirdiron.com, I can point you directly to a support article that lists the PDF directly supported platforms. There is a direct article here for that. So I can send you a list. Lauren asks, you mentioned retraction notification appearing in Primo results. Is it also in Summon results where BrowZine has been integrated? Lauren, yes. Yeah, so I only was highlighting Primo as an example, but that will actually affect both Primo and Summon, and we're speaking with all the other providers as well to have that same type of experience. So that will be everywhere. Kelly, are there any plans to regularly update library holdings more often than once a month? As many of you know, that is the frequency with which we update holdings. We are still examining that. Pushing it to be even faster and faster is kind of a roadmap item for us. I think ideally we'd like to get down to weekly. That would be the goal that we'd be going after. There are significant just technical challenges to do that. Honestly, with our experience, looking at this so far, we've rarely seen too many sort of trains missing in the night with that, just because of the nature of serials, where they're mostly the materials continue to come out. Aggregators drop things about once a month. Holdings are updated once a month. Obviously, if you do make significant cancellations or additions and you want to see those reflected immediately inside of the LibKey and BrowZine universe, you're always welcome to send us a manual update at any time, and we'll get that updated right away. Thanks for that question. Let's see, other questions. Walter says, will you mark the new entries in your how to add LibKey link document? I'm not sure what you mean by mark the new entries. I think you mean like new services. The new services will likely appear towards the bottom. So if you kind of scroll to the bottom, that's where the newer things will be. We definitely added the ones that we see most commonly used, which include things like Google Scholar, EBSCOhost, Web of Science, PubMed, and so forth at the top. But other ones, a newer one we've had is like Ovid at the bottom, for example. Martin says, what about EBSCO's Dynamed for LibKey Nomad integration? It would be great to link to full text within that product, similar to what is being done in UpToDate and Micromedics. Martin, yeah, that is actually on the investigation list, because I know that that is a competitor for UpToDate. So you know that we are looking into that. There are some like technical requirements that those systems have to have. So I can't say for sure yet that we could do it, but know that that is on the list of investigations. And Earl says, how do you support the rollout of Nomad to Microsoft Edge in the enterprise? So Earl, with Edge for Enterprise, I think what we're going to have to do is get it natively in the Edge store, the Microsoft store. I don't think that Enterprise rollout is going to work nicely from the Chrome store. So that is something that we are looking at right now, is to see how to do that. How do we automate that process to get it up to Microsoft's store natively, which I think is going to allow for doing those group policy deployments. So at the moment, can't quite do it, but know that that is actually a kind of a next in line for Nomad as well. Thanks for that question. Chris, will you share a recording of this? Yes, absolutely. That will be, you'll receive an email about that. Eden asks, as EPUB becomes more available, will that become an option along with PDF and article links to publisher sites? That has been a long-standing kind of point of interest for me, to kind of monitor that progress. I know Springer was very, very interested in doing a lot of that for a little while, a couple of years ago, and that's largely tailed off. I'm not real sure why. I think they moved more to dynamic HTML maybe. But certainly we will go where the trends and interests are. So if that is something that people want to take advantage of, certainly would love to hear about it as it becomes more available. So yeah, thank you for that. Karen, the Library Ninja, asks, how about Safari working with Nomad? So Nomad doesn't support Safari yet. That is also another one kind of on the roadmap. We are kind of focusing on the group policy install platforms first, just because there's a lot of interest in doing that. And we haven't heard of anyone ask us about a Safari group policy deployment yet. It just doesn't seem to be an enterprise platform that people are using for that right now. But know that, understandably, I'm a Safari user myself. I would like to see us do that eventually. Other questions? I think I caught up here. So we simultaneously had two questions about EndNote, basically, integration for bibliographic citation management services. We're not, so LibKey Link doesn't work directly in those services. I'm sorry, LibKey IO doesn't work in those services, and LibKey Link doesn't either. And the reason is the way that EndNote scrapes its PDFs is really a screen scraper kind of technology. So they support like SFX and Serial Solutions because they've literally built a scraper to handle those systems. So if they can't find the PDF directly by going to the DOI within your IP range and so on, they will go to your link resolver and then they'll scrape the results and try and like literally click things through. Your results may be mixed with how well that works and so on, but they would literally have to build that support for LibKey Link for that to happen. I've spoken with the product managers there who noted that they don't even support Alma, at least when I talked to them. So that's a pretty huge one. So I think that they're looking at how to continue to support that sort of process kind of going forward. But it's not a traditional kind of linking sort of thing. I have talked to them about doing a libkey.io sort of linking that can be just attached to the record. So if people have DOIs in the record, when they click, they can have an option to have it resolve via libkey.io. So I think there'll be integrations coming forward on that front, just maybe a little bit differently than maybe how you'd expect. Linda asked, do you have an example of a library that has put the DOI finder on their website? Absolutely, Linda. So we had both Cleveland Clinic did this, and I'll share my screen over here as well. Let me switch screens real quick. Let me pull this up here. And all right, let me set the share correctly. All right, thank you. Okay, so in all of these, this is UMass Medical School. And you can see they have a bunch of different tabs here. And one of them they added was literally a get PDF. So from here, I'm totally guessing in the dark. This is totally unprepared. Let's see if this one exists at this library. But kind of off it goes to this one particular library. And yes, they have a PDF of this from Physiological Reports. So this is one that you could look at, library.umassmed.edu, as one potential integration here. I've seen it done a number of different ways. If you don't have kind of a tab sort of thing, I've seen people do it as a separate link right under the sort of discovery type of search mechanism as well. So a number of different ways that you can do this, but our code makes it very easy to do this. Thanks for your question. Let me go back to the questions coming in here. Paul says, is GetFTR about publishers trying to copy your idea? Not exactly, no. There are some overlaps in sort of like concept, right? We were doing this indeed, long before that. And Kendall posted that UMass, thank you. No, the GetFTR project is very different in that publishers are essentially saying, we want to create versions of record linking from our to our site. And we want you to do it in a certain way, and we want you to do it for our supported publishers. Whereas we're saying libraries know where they have access to things from, and we want to support all the publishers like immediately for those libraries. Because to date, there's 6 publishers that you can access with GetFTR, for example. And not with any proxies. So it has to be SAML oriented and so on. So it's a very different sort of concept that they're going for. Martin shared another page where they've already done this. Okay, great. That's super. Does LibKey linking work with Scopus secondary source results? Not in an inline way. So we didn't go all the way down into those for Nomad. If that supports link resolvers, you could use LibKey Link for those secondary sources, and that would work for you there, Chris. Other questions I can answer. Web of Science is available right now with LibKey Nomad, yes. So that with Nomad, the inlines we do today is PubMed, Wikipedia, Web of Science, Scopus, and within a few days here, Embase. The more clinician-focused things that's roadmap things that we're working on. Earl is on top of it. Embase is live today. See, I don't know what's going on, so that's great. That's good. Thank you, sir. Other questions I can help with, folks? Chris, Engineering Village is one that we actually reached out to them to do a LibKey Discovery integration, which was prototyped up, but hasn't been released. So I think we would want to focus on the discovery side first, just because that way there's nothing to install. But certainly, if that doesn't progress, we can circle back with Nomad. Absolutely. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate that. All right. Going once, going twice on the question side. And if you have questions where some of you are DMing me for more information, please do email me at john.thirdIron.com. I'm happy to talk to you more about license information, or if you want a personal demonstration and so on for your library. Yeah, ebook platforms will be very cool. Not just yet, but thanks, Martin. All right, thanks everybody. I'm gonna wrap it up here. Have a great day, and thanks a lot for your support. Have a great day.